traders. So we've had the FOMC minutes, and the takeaway from that is that the excuse me, high inflation suggested that we should be raising interest rates, downside risks to growth, including the possibility the Fed hikes may have a larger than anticipated impact. Well, we're certainly seeing that in commodity prices. Interesting, they're still looking at a potential 75 basis points move in July, and also interesting that participants judge there's a significant risk of higher inflation could become entrenched if the Fed's credibility was questioned. No mention of 100 basis, but I think that the market or the Fed probably should do that, shock and awe, and then stop and wait till next year. And the market's certainly starting to price in a recession next year, as we shall see. So we've had the Fed, a bit of a quiet day in front of us until we sort of get into Friday night, really, with the unemployment data from the US. So looking at prices, the buying the US dollar theme is still on track, and I would suggest that we're going to pretty much run like that until we get into the FOMC week. And we're seeing the US bonds here have a bounce after a number of days of a sell-off. Had a bounce over, this is the 4-hour chart, this is the 1-hour chart, bounced nicely, and I think we'll see that continue as we run into FOMC, and therefore the buying on the US dollar should continue as we run into the FOMC. Euro certainly looks like it's heading towards parity. That's down, hasn't been down at parity since, when was that, 2002, but that's where we're heading, parity being 1.00 on par. Having broken through that head and shoulder neckline, that's where we're looking at. There may be a bit of a bounce. We are oversold here, so I wouldn't be selling at this stage. If you're not short on the daily time frame, you've missed the opportunity, and the opportunity was back here on the daily. You might be able to trade the shorter time frame, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a bounce and a retest of that neckline before we go and have a look at that parity. We may not get to retest that line, but when things get over, when the RSI indicator does get down to these levels, the extra sell-off is limited, right? So here we saw the market stop and then did have another sell-off or a leg lower. Maybe that's what's in play this time, is creating a bit of a consolidation for the shorts before they push on down to parity. But yeah, trading here now on the daily time frame is FOMO trading. You've missed the opportunity. However, there could be something on the shorter time frames. We might see the hourly come back up to this, fill in this gap here. Could fill that gap in and then look to get short. It's 102.30, so maybe that's where you start to fade it if it makes its way back up there on the 4-hour time frame. Yeah, so that might be the opportunity on the shorter time frame, but certainly on the daily, it's I would find it a difficult trade to get a risk-reward ratio out here. Aussie dollar still weaker, and I would expect that theme to continue, even though commodities found a bit of a bid last night, and a bit of a support level there. I wouldn't get too excited about trying to buy the Aussie dollar. There's more headwinds for it as China continues to struggle economically coming out of COVID. It's good that they're opening up again, but there's a lot of repair work to be done on their economy. Boris Johnson and his party, he insists on his staying. Apparently the people need him, whereas everybody else is bailing on him. The rat's out for sinking ship, but he's holding on. Yeah, again, I wouldn't be buying a pound. There's no reason for it. People are buying, well, they did by the end, but it's all over now. Sound like Pretty Woman too. Roy Orbison. Oh, what's it? Yeah, and a little weaker across the board there. There might be something there. Tricky. Yeah, I think the play for today is waiting for that euro to come back up to fill this gap in here and fill this gap and short it. Might be the trade because that's still going to happen. Loony across here. Well, I'm surprised that the Canadian currency was a bit stronger than the US when oil price continues to fall. We can see the energy scenario or the energy scene weaker as recession starts to, or the idea of the recession starts to take hold, and that means demand is going to be lower, and therefore demand for energy might be lower, especially during the European summer. Things might change coming into the European winter, particularly for Germany, but right now the scene is selling oil, so I'm not sure why you'd want to be buying the loonie with that in play. Copper here seems to have stopped the rot for now, but again, the idea of the recession, just the last trading session, the recession play seems to not be there. As we see, commodities across the board all sort of had a reasonable day, but one day does not make a trend, right? So it may have stopped for now, but the recession is definitely coming, so be careful of what you jump into. As we see, all the commodities here, well, they've all sort of had a bit of a breather overnight. Stocks up a little, 0.5%. Nothing to write home about, but at least it stopped selling as they look beyond the rate hikes in a couple of weeks, and looking for cheaper money later this year or early next year as the Fed rolls over and starts cutting rates to battle the recession. And VIX, the fear indicator, would suggest that there's nothing untoward happening in the future. We are coming into earnings season in the US. Next week we'll have a 2-week period of corporate earnings, and that might provide some volatility around the stock market. And that's about it. As I said, I think the play for today is look for an opportunity here. It might be later as we later into the European session, as we see Asian session creep higher. It's a 50-point move to get up there. That's not unheard of during the Asian session. Might be tough during the Asian session, but yeah, I'd be looking for a shorting opportunity as we come into the Euro session later this evening. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty quiet day. And if you really need to trade, maybe look at the yen and finding a short opportunity on that. Okay, thanks guys. We'll see you tomorrow.